so we are about to do a Dexa scan with the one and only Dr. Droll. So we're going to talk through what this machine does and what we use it for. Traditionally, this device is known as a bone densitometer. So you'll see these a lot in physicians' offices when they want to measure bone mineral density. And we know that, having dense bones is really important. When we have brittle bones, that increases our risk for fracture and things like that. And so in the olden days, these bone densitometers were just used for that. And interesting to note, if we were really going to look to see if somebody had osteoporosis, which is diagnosable bone mass, or osteopenia, which is that area just below normal bone mass and between full-blown osteoporosis, we would have to do a site-specific scan where we scanned either the wrist, the lumbar spine, or the femur. So we don't do that with our machine a lot. We could do it here. You'd have to go to a doctor to have that diagnosed, but we use it to determine percent body fat. Typically the scans that we do are head to toe, total body percent fat. But the great thing about the Dexa is that it can give us location of fat storage. So not only am I going to get a number for the entire person, but I can look at differences in the right arm, the right leg, left leg. I can estimate how much visceral fat we have stored, which the visceral fat, I always say if you wanted to be something really scary for Halloween, you could come as visceral fat because it's not good for health, right? In other words, that's the fat that we store deep around internal organs that's so closely linked to things like cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome. So why don't you see Dexas around more at places like gyms and things like that? It's because these devices do produce radiation, and so because of that, their use is regulated from, and it's based on the state that you're in. So the use is regulated state to state. So basically, two very low dose X-ray beams are passed through your body as the scanner arm moves the length of the table. And because we're using those two X-ray beams, we can tell the difference not only between fat and lean tissue, but fat tissue, lean tissue, and bone tissue, which is awesome. One of the reasons we like to use Dexa over more like common techniques like skin folds, like those BIA devices that you hold, is that it's way more accurate. So in research, we talk about like the standard error of the estimate, and that's just how much error surrounds, the number that you're given by this machine that's just based on the technique itself. And so Dexa has a really low standard error of about 1.8%. And so that means if I measured you and your percent body fat is about 30%, that true value for you likely falls somewhere between 30 minus 1.8 and 30 plus 1.8. So about what would that be?
28 to 32.
Yeah,
roughly.
about 28 to 32%. I can't do math fast. So it is very accurate. It doesn't take long. Each scan takes about 6 or 7 minutes. And it's hard to mess it up unless you improperly position somebody on the table or scan them with a bunch of metal on. Finally, let's land with some values for percent body fat. So unfortunately, so often I think in our society, body fat gets a bad rap, like it's bad, we don't want it. And the truth is, fat serves a lot of really important physiologic functions, right? And so we have to have enough fat to be healthy. And the point at which fat negatively impacts health varies so much between people that it's really hard to have a hard and fast line of like, hey, this is too much body fat, right? If we're measuring somebody's body fat, we want to know a lot of other stuff, like what is your lifestyle like? Or, how's your diet? Are you getting enough resistance training, enough aerobic exercise? What does your metabolic health look like, right? What are your blood glucose, blood lipids, blood pressure? But I really like to use guidelines from the American College of Sports Medicine in their resource manual, where they say for women younger than about 35, healthy really may be anywhere from about 20 to 35%. And then for men in that same age group, anywhere from about 8 to 22% might be considered within normal limits. And those values go up a little bit as we age because most of us tend to have a little bit higher percent body fat as we get older, which we can combat with exercise. But that's one of the natural kind of things that occurs with aging. And then finally, for you dudes, we say you really need about 3 to 5% body fat for normal physiologic function at least. And for women, at least 8 to 12%. And some people may need even more than that to physiologically function normally.